Hey guys, this is Deanne with Hope Point Myo. I was going to talk to you today about occlusion. I don't know if you've heard of occlusion before, but it just means how your teeth fit together. I have a model right here. This is a mold of teeth I actually did in hygiene school, and this was from a mold, so it's not anybody's specific teeth. But I wanted to use this to show you what occlusion look like, or what good occlusion look like. Generally, when teeth come together, they almost look like a zigzag, and they fit very well together. Ideally, your front teeth will overhang the bottom teeth, kind of like a lid on a shoebox. You don't want it too much. If you have too much, then that's not good, and actually that's usually a sign of an airway issue from your jaw being too far back in the airway. Also, it can be a result of tongue thrust, pushing on these teeth all the time when you swallow. But let me hook this back the way it needs to go. So good occlusion, it's kind of like puzzle pieces where you kind of lock them in, and they lock in there really well, and you can't move them once they get in. But the zigzags fit together, and not just that way, but if you look this way, you can see how they lock into each other, again, like a puzzle piece on both sides. You can kind of see it on the inside too, and then it goes all the way around. So that is called occlusion, and this form has a good occlusion. I have my own teeth, just to give you a real life example. I just recently had a device made that I wear at night that pulls my jaw forward. It's called a mandibular advancement device. It's also called an oral appliance therapy, and I'll have a video on that coming up soon if you want to hear about that and how I'm treating sleep disordered breathing with that. That should be very helpful. But so I had these molds made, or poured models, you know, when they do that impression with all the gaggy stuff that goes in the back of your throat. These were made from that in order to make that device, but the lines were to line up my bite, so they don't just take the molds, but they had me bite on this stuff to see how my teeth fit together, and then they could line it up with this. So if you can see, there's the zigzag around. Mine aren't as perfect as the others. And then it comes around and generally zigzag. If you go to the dental office and you get x-rays taken, you can actually look at your top teeth and bottom teeth and see how they generally have that and fits pretty well together. And then you can look in here, see how this fits into that tooth quite well, and that one well also. This isn't quite the zigzag that you'd want, so it's a little off, but I have major jaw popping issues, but I don't have pain or headaches, so I'm not concerned about it because the popping doesn't cause any pain, although it's very annoying because it's very prominent. But part of that is because my teeth, I don't have premolars, one set of premolars on each side. Those were pulled for me to get braces when I was about 11, and then they just took these teeth and pulled them back. So instead of having further, not having enough room, they pulled the teeth, pulled these back, and now my teeth are straight, but I don't have as much room for my tongue because this has all been pulled back. Tongue goes back into the airway, creates sleep disordered breathing, eventually it'd be sleep apnea. So that's why I treat it with my mandibular advancement device, and I'll talk to you about that later. I was looking at Caitlin's models because we also had a device made for her because it had been recommended that she have MMA surgery by one airway dentist. We didn't want to go that invasive yet, so my thought would be, well, let's get the mandibular advancement device she could at least wear at night to bring that jaw forward and open up the airway. Just to give history, if you don't know her story, she has suffered with chronic migraines or chronic tension headaches for over 10 years, and she wouldn't necessarily say she had TMJ issues. She doesn't feel it so much in the jaw, but we've seen several dentists, several airway dentists, we've seen neurologists, we've seen every kind of professional with no answers until we found out about myofunctional therapy and airway dentistry. And we realized several things. One, she did have a deviated septum. We got that corrected last November, and that has helped her tremendously, just being able to breathe through her nose. It's been kind of fun this summer. She's training for like a 5K, and then hopes to train up from there. And so she would have never been able to really do that before. Anytime she ran or exercised, she'd get migraines, and now she's doing a lot better. It's not to say she doesn't have her days, that she doesn't have those issues, but not near as often as they were. And another thing that's helped, she's not in college classes. She's doing a few now through the summer, otherwise she's graduated. And the stress of that has helped, and not being in the lights at school and the timing and all that. So everything's multifactorial in all of our health, but that was a lot of factors for her headaches. And again, that's improved dramatically, but she still has her days. But I did, in looking at her model, something like red flag stood out to me, and that, looking at the occlusion. And history for me, I got in dentistry right out of high school, like 20 something years, almost 30 years ago. And the dentist that hired me was a very dear friend of mine, still is. He specialized in TMJ disorders and did specialized training, and was one of few in the United States who specialized in that. So I've been tapping into his knowledge. He's retired now, but he still has all that knowledge. And so I sent him a video of Caitlin's, and I'll show you, but of Caitlin's models, and said, hey, do you see anything here? And he said, yeah. The thing that I thought maybe was concern, it was a red flag to him. So he confirmed that. So I'm going to show that to you. So these are Caitlin's models. This is not what her tooth looks like. That's just when they were working on it to make the appliance, it chips. So just ignore the chips. But if you just look at, remember the zigzag and how they're supposed to fit together. If you see any issues there, we're circling around. Again, ignore the cracks, going around and around and around, and to there. Now I'll go back on this side to see, and we know this is how her bite is because those lines, they line it up with how her bite is. So this one you can see, that fits pretty well together. This one, not beautiful. We circle around. This is the right side of her jaw. So these, you kind of see the zigzag here, but once you get to here, there's no zigzag. And those cusps, which are the pointy parts of the teeth, those are hitting each other, and that's not good. That's the first thing that stood out to me. That's a really bad sign. It's not too bad on the inside. It's kind of in the zigzag, at least on that tooth, but right there, red flag. So I'm going to circle it around. He mentioned some other spots in the premolars. He would see that. I don't have the trained eye like he just does. Again, this isn't beautiful on this side either. It's fitting, okay, but not on the cusps there. Whenever I looked in her mouth to clean them last time, those were the molars that were worn down, rather than the other ones aren't so worn down, but it's those back ones that aren't hitting right. And that makes sense because they're hitting not where they're supposed to. They're hitting on the cusps. Whenever they're zigzag, that means they're fitting, you know, just like a glove, the way they're supposed to, and then they don't wear down. Those are wearing down on her because they're hitting on those cusps. And so I was asking him about that. The Dr. Green that I used to work for at the TMJ specialist, and he said that, you know, when it is hitting that, it's throwing everything out of balance. Everything fits just right, it's in balance, everything's great, muscles are working the way they're supposed to, and everything's even. Whenever something is hitting off like that, and that is her right side, it's firing and like signals and pain and things like that. And the reason why we know that it's more on that side is because we had seen a specialist down in Springfield. She hooked up the electrical connections to measure muscle spasming or muscle pressure, and the right side was firing way more than the left. And it's like, well, that makes sense because now we see that the molars are hitting there cusp to cusp rather than in the groove. Something the doctor also mentioned, Dr. Green, actually they were both doctors, the one in Springfield was also a Dr. Green, but the Dr. Green I worked with, he said that these, there's a bundle of nerves here, like a big bundle of nerves right in the ear area and the TMJ. And if you think about the molars, those last molars, they're right in that area. They're very close to that bundle of nerves. And another doctor that I have followed has said there's no, usually there's like a doorway, that's a simple term, from a nerve to eventually to your brain on all your nervous system, but not in this. It goes straight to the brain. And so whenever there's firing of something, there's no like doorway to slow it down. It's just like pain or muscle spasms. And so when she's hitting those, it's firing those nerves. It's causing the muscles in the face. These are masseter muscles, pterygoid muscles, which are in and out of that jaw. They're having to compensate to try to chew right and not hit that and all those things. So they're out of whack. And then they cause this tension and cause a lot of pain. So I honestly feel like with Caitlin, with her headaches, it's like we've gone down these different routes. We have, the nose was huge, getting that airway fixed. As far as the nose, she still has a small mouth. She still will deal with or struggle with sleep apnea. or sleep disordered breathing. We know sleep disordered breathing causes clenching and grinding at night. So for those of you who have that or aren't sleeping well, if you have malocclusion, which means your teeth aren't hitting within the grooves and you don't sleep well, you could be clenching at night and just causing that to fire. So if you wake up with these things, that's likely what's happening. If you have high stress, you clench, or anything that causes you to clench, it's firing those. Sometimes low iron can cause clenching and just other disorders as well. But you could be thinking there are different things that can cause malocclusion. It could be you've gotten hit in the jaw, car accident, could be braces. A lot of times it's braces. And the orthodontist, some just don't check that occlusion. They'll straighten your teeth. They look beautiful, but they're not occluded right. I know whenever people have looked in Caitlin's mouth, they'll, they just have her smile and they're like, oh, that looks good, bite looks good, but they can't see, because the lip's in the way, how well exactly those back teeth are hitting, but you can when you do a model. It's like, oh, there it is, which we wouldn't have seen that before. And the dentist, Dr. Green, that I worked for, he said he used to, when he treated TMJ, he would do models right away, and he would do this whole measurement and have this like fake mouth holder to see exactly what's hitting and where and what's causing that firing and causing the TMJ issues. I don't know anybody who does that around, but I'm definitely going to be doing my research to find somebody who can help in that. So there's two things to do about that malocclusion, at least for Caitlin. One would be orthodontics with somebody who is highly specialized in knowing how to line up those teeth to hit groove and groove, to have the proper occlusion, not just making sure the molars line up with the premolars, because we're taught to check that, but to make sure the grooves, the cusps, are fitting within each other perfectly all the way to the back. The other option is, well, there's a few. A dentist in Springfield had mentioned grinding down those teeth and putting crowns on, and those crowns are made to fit into occlusion, which I'm sure that works. It's very expensive. Caitlin has like maybe one filling or two. I would hate to grind down perfectly healthy teeth. I mean, that would be a last case scenario, but grind down those teeth. Now, if you needed crowns anyway, I'd say absolutely do it. But you'd take perfectly healthy tooth and grind them down to a stump to put a crown over that to make them fit. And I really wouldn't want to do that. The other option that the dentist would do that I worked for is he would just grind the teeth a little bit. He'd get his burr, and I do remember doing this with him whenever I was working with him, but he would check the bite and he would sit there and just here and there with the burr, grind down the tooth just a little bit to make those teeth hit just right. You can't just do that on anybody. Caitlin's young. She has enough enamel that just taking a little bit off of that enamel doesn't affect the tooth itself. And so she's a good candidate for that, potentially, depending on how much work she would need done to get them to fit. So that's where I need to do my research on that. But I just wanted to share that information with y'all. I was just like, wow, I feel like I have found the very, very root cause. It's a cycle. Like this causes this, causes this, causes this. So it's malocclusion along with the clenching and the grinding, which can be from sleep disordered breathing, and it can be from stress and all these things. And the pain is real and just a cycle, because when you're in pain, you clench more. And when you clench more, it just keeps going. But the underlying factor, it seems like for her, is this malocclusion in these very back teeth where they're hitting not quite right, cusp to cusp, and then it's firing those muscles to be out of balance and those nerves to just fire and cause pain. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.